Lyra, a girl from another alien planet, comes to planet Earth to warn men to stop wars and the destruction of the planet. Before landing in New York City, she had descended into forests around the world and seen a lot of devastation and recorded and stored the images on her supersonic robot as she would have a meeting with the presidents of several countries. Lyra speaks at a meeting to the presidents of several countries and tries to convince them to change their attitudes not only with words, but also with images of devastation and destruction of the environment that she captured and recorded on her robot before coming to this meeting, as she was hopeful that she would be able to convince them to change their attitudes. Lyra leaves the meeting disappointed, as they gave several excuses, such as that it would cost a lot of money to recover, and that they had priorities that would prevent them from doing what she asked. Lyra leaves the meeting, and outside the sun was shining, and children came to hug her to thank her for caring about their future. Lyra returns to the ship and goes to the arid desert of Earth for studies and analysis. Lyra activated the ship's camouflage sensor, as her ship could change shape like a transformer. It could change shape from a cigar to a plane, thus making it difficult to locate.
On a clear night, an unknown object crossed the Earth's skies, choosing the silence of the desert to make its first contact. From the ship emerged a figure that, from a distance, could have been mistaken for a human woman, but whose presence emanated a serene and unfamiliar authority. Following her was her guardian, an imposing metal construction that moved with menacing silence. Not far away, Professor Arthur Mendez, who dedicated his life to searching for signals in the universe, witnessed the event he had always dreamed of. The news spread quickly. Within hours, humanity's first contact was being treated as a potential military threat. Showing no fear, the visitor made a universal gesture of peace, but her eyes showed that she expected exactly this reception. The authorities brought in their best expert, Professor Mendez, to try to establish communication. "We come in peace, Professor Arthur Mendez, but our patience with your kind is wearing thin."
Ignoring the warning, world leaders took her in for questioning, treating the emissary like a prisoner.
She came with a message for all humanity, but was received only by men of war.
"Your weapons," she said, "your relentless pursuit of destruction is creating tears in the fabric of space. You are poisoning the galaxy."
The message was clear, but human arrogance was even greater. They saw not a warning, but a veiled threat. Arthur tried to explain. "The anomalies we detected, they make sense now. She's telling the truth." Far away, feeling the hostility towards his protege, Orion began to awaken. She gave humanity one last chance to cooperate, one last warning before a display of power.
At that moment, Arthur saw not an alien, but a visionary. And, to his surprise, he felt the beginnings of an impossible passion.
The time for conversation was over. Orion came to rescue Lyra and show her a glimpse of his true strength. Human defenses were useless. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything on Earth. Arthur made a choice. He left his world to help save it, alongside the woman who could destroy it.
The first phase of contact had failed. Now Lyra needed a new plan to make humanity take her seriously.
Inside the ship, there were no buttons or levers, just a thought-controlled interface. The technology was like magic. She showed him where she came from, a civilization that overcame war millennia ago and now acted as guardians of the galaxy.
"You are a brilliant young species," she said sadly. "But you are trapped in a cycle of self-destruction."
While the world hunted him as a traitor, Arthur found more humanity in that alien than in his own leaders. In an instant, the entire planet's electricity was cut off. A demonstration of absolute control.
It wasn't just civilian power. Every weapon on the planet, from a simple rifle to a nuclear submarine, became inert.
The most powerful men in the world have been reduced to impotence, forced to confront their own fragility. The perpetrator of the global blackout wasn't a bomb or a virus. It was a single robot executing a command.
Lyra replied, "Sometimes it takes a shock to wake the sleepers. Now they will listen."
The blackout lasted exactly 1 hour, long enough to prove a point, but not long enough to plunge the world into anarchy. When the power returned, it took control of every screen on the planet. Then a hologram of Lyra appeared, speaking as if she were there. The whole world stopped to hear her message. The ultimatum was given. It wasn't a negotiation, but a statement of facts. By his side, Arthur represented the hope that humanity could make the right choice. message divided humanity. Fear fought against reason, and pride fought against survival. But there are always those who believe violence is the only answer. A treacherous attack was being planned. Using hidden technology, shielded from the deactivation waves, the rebel military faction launched its attack. Fools, Lyra said with a sigh. They don't understand that they can't fight us. The Guardian was ready to defend the ship, and the punishment for defying him would be absolute.
Earth's most advanced weapons were stopped with a single gesture. Orion's power was incomprehensible.
His order was clear. Hesitate, not destroy. She still refused to take human life. Disappointment in his voice was palpable. The mission seemed on the verge of failure. You have seen their power, Arthur said, his voice echoing through the hall. And you have also seen their mercy. He offered himself as a bridge between two worlds, risking everything for peace. Arthur's desperate plea worked. For the first time, Earth's leaders approached him not as warriors, but as students. Consumed by hatred, the general disobeyed all orders and prepared his last and most cowardly attack. A kinetic energy attack from space, Lyra said. Primitive, but powerful enough to destroy this ship and a large portion of this planet. The robot was willing to sacrifice itself, but Lyra wouldn't allow it. Arthur, no! Lyra screamed. The radiation from the weapon will kill him! He wasn't a soldier nor a pilot. He was a teacher, in love with a woman from the stars, making the ultimate sacrifice for peace. He had a plan. Position the pod at just the right point to create a chain reaction overload on the satellite. He succeeded. The attack was neutralized, but the price was his own life. The Guardian of the Galaxy, who had witnessed the birth and death of stars, wept for a single human man. One man's act of courage did what armies and ultimatums could not. He united the world in a moment of grief and hope. The robot, a war machine, showed a gesture of compassion for its creator and friend. The ship's technology, sensing Arthur's sacrifice, activated an unknown emergency protocol. It wasn't just the ship, it was the galaxy itself responding to an act of pure love. He didn't just survive, He was transformed, touched by the energy that connects all living things in the universe. Their love became the symbol of a new covenant, a promise of a future in which humanity would finally look to the stars, not with fear, but with hope. Arthur's sacrifice broke the barrier of pride. Humanity was ready to listen. The first global disarmament treaty began, not out of fear, but out of mutual understanding. She came not just to warn, but to help. Her civilization's knowledge began to heal Earth's wounds. The teacher who looked to the stars now traveled among them, guiding his kind to a brighter future. The war machine has become a world builder, its purpose redefined by peace. I need to report to the council, she said, but I will be back. That is my promise. A piece of humanity, a relic of time for a woman who lived beyond it. The silent guardian had made a friend, a gesture of respect between two protectors. She left, leaving behind a world forever changed, and a man who would wait for her return. Their story wasn't over. It was just the beginning of humanity's journey into the greater galactic community. They spoke every day, sharing Earth's progress and the wonders of the galaxy. The story of the day the Earth awakened has become a legend, taught to every child as a reminder of the power of peace. Humanity has finally found its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as partners. He never lost hope. He knew her promise was sacred. And one day, the promise was fulfilled. Distance meant nothing to them. Time was just a detail. Her mission on the council was over. She chose Earth and him as her new home. A gift from the world of Lyra, a tree of life, to symbolize the eternal union of its peoples. And so began the next chapter, not of a cautionary tale, but of a love story that united heaven and earth forever. Lyra informs Professor Arthur that she has to reach the starting point in the desert before the destroyer ship starts attacking Earth, as humanity will not stand a chance.
The professor asks, why there in the desert? Lyra says that is the agreed meeting point, and to inform Bera, and only I appear there with the shape of a peace ship, and the agreement accepted, because this transformation of the ship is also a kind of code that each shape represents an action. Lyra is frightened, because the desert she had lived in after she used the device that terraforms, transformed the desert into a dense forest. Because the terraform device she used transformed in just a few days an immense area of desert into a forest area. Thanks to the interstellar GPS, she knew the correct location.
The professor was surprised, as the ship did not need to turn. It simply deactivated the jet and began to move sideways, as the ship was already programmed to arrive at the location automatically.
Lyra, I'm going to change the shape of the ship. They must be close. I'm going to the waterfall. I'm going to go down and wait until night, and then I'm going to go up to the clouds.
Lyra observes that 2 destruction ships have arrived, but she says, I have already issued the peace command. How they know that the men have agreed? Mission accomplished. I have saved humanity.
Professor Arthur, Lyra, can we walk through this forest? When I was here, this was all desert. Now it's a forest. For you, it must be common. But for me, this is unbelievable. Lyra was in love with Professor Arthur and allowed us to walk through the forest.
Lyra and the professor decide to go out to contemplate nature. Lyra communicates to the UN about the withdrawal and acceptance of the agreement, and the plenary applauds with happiness and relief. Lyra and Professor Arthur always went for walks in the forest. For years, they and the robot did this, and each year the professor grew older and Lyra remained young. But love forgives all, accepts all, does not complain, is patient and eternal. And now humanity will have a new beginning. For now, they will care for nature, thus protecting an inheritance for the next generation, and thus pleasing mankind and God.